Expose yourself to the language.
In whatever way you like. A random scroll that you hang on a wall, and I hung it in my childhood bedroom.
Wall scroll does not feature a particular get the duck out bird, does it?
And then when I go to Tokyo occasionally or elsewhere in Japan, they speak strangely.
Yeah.
Hey, podcast kittens! It's Cathy Cat!
And it's Ladybeard coming at you with another Earth-ignoring installment of Cat with Beard! Cat with Beard!
Perfect adjective to say unpacking episode of Cat with Beard right now, because right now we're not in our studio. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will see it. We're actually on the base, or in the home base of Unpacking Japan with Tobi here next to us.
Tobi!
Thank you so much for having me. I'm Tobi. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the host of the Unpacking Japan podcast, and I was kindly invited to join you guys today.
Oh no,
In my
you
own
invited
studio.
us to come to your
Exactly,
studio.
we're in your
so-
studio. By the way, this is the first time Cat with Beard has ever gotten out of Dodge. This is Cat with Beard out of Dodge.
Out of
Great
the
debut.
Yeah, out of the usual surroundings. Seriously,
We've
I'm
never
loving this.
never been out of Tokyo before, have we?
Yeah,
This is our
out
first
of
ever.
Tokyo.
No, we're in Osaka, for those who don't know.
We traveled, we brought our equipment, and here we are,
we
ready
are.
to slay it with Tobi.
Tobi!
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
For the
Yo,
warm
yo, yo,
introduction.
yo. Thanks so much for having us. So, you are Tobi. You are Tobias. The guy.
Okay, we already have done 2 episodes on your podcast, which will be
Yes.
released later. But what you said, what Ladybeard said in the start of your podcast,
So you're
I have to
translating for him
repeat.
again.
I was about to say you're Tobias of the Darius. I don't know what that means.
I was going to say what you
Not
said,
meaning.
Toe-A and Tobi.
Oh, well, go ahead. I'll let you repeat.
What I remember from, because obviously I was watching your interview as well after I did my interview, and you're just like, if you number your toes from A to Z,
This is the
to
one thing
A
that
and
stayed
Tobi.
from that interview.
That stayed from the interview. It left a very
Great.
big foot impression on me. That sounded weird. Let's
But
never
by your
mind.
stat, is toe A, is that going to be the little toe or the big toe in your toe numbering system?
That's a difficult question.
It is.
We're starting our podcast off with very difficult
I
questions.
think the little toe should be toe A because it's shaped more like a capital A. The big
I
toe
see.
is shaped more like an apple or something.
Let's
I
take
guess
it by your logic. I think that works.
So, Tobi, we're going to talk in 2 episodes. We're going to talk first about you and your life, and then we're also going to talk about your career now with Unpacking Japan and what you're doing with that. So let's
Awesome.
first start where the little toe started, where the little Tobi started. So where did everything start? Who are you?
Everything. Who am I? Well,
Where you from? What you do? Tell us about yourself.
I grew up in France. My parents moved there from Germany.
Yeah.
So born and raised in France from German parents, and basically lived there until I was 18 and started wandering around the world. First place I went to was Shanghai.
Aha!
Wow.
Yeah.
So from Germany to France to Shanghai.
Correct. I went there on exchange in my first year of university, and I was like, oh, this is so cool. We had the chance at university to pick a second language, and I could choose between German, which I already spoke, Italian, which I had studied for 3 years in middle school and high school, and I was like, oh, I want something new, and Spanish, which everyone was doing, so I was like, I want something else, and then there was Chinese. So we started Chinese, and it was, the first year just learning maybe 50 characters and the intonations, but it was so different. It was so cool. And then I went to Shanghai, spent a year there, and that was awesome.
Question. The move to Shanghai, was that because your parents
No,
moved?
just me.
Because you wanted to move? Oh,
Me
you
for
just
university
decided, I'm going
exchange.
to go boom, kind
Yeah,
of.
basically for a university exchange. I was like, I'm going to Shanghai. And,
Wow. How old were you?
18.
Yeah, a place like Shanghai for an 18-year-old. But this would have been a little while ago, yeah, like 10 years ago or so.
Yeah, that was 2012.
Yeah, you would have had a blast.
Oh, it was
2012
awesome.
Shanghai.
It was great.
And especially that was in that decade of the 2010s. That's when there was all this foreign investment in China, and
Yeah.
the whole nation was just whoop, 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 whoop.
Things were moving fast. People were
Yeah.
open. You could do a lot of things, a lot of
Do
opportunities.
A lot of opportunity, a lot of capital flowing in, a lot you could get done then.
But for me, what was really interesting as well is at the end of this year, so that was probably early summer 2013, was the first time I came to Japan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wait, why?
So I was finishing up my year abroad in China, and I was invited by a friend that I met in my exchange program to visit in Japan.
Huh.
Stayed at my friend's place in Tokyo for a week, came to Kansai for a week, and did what most people do on their first trip to Japan. And wow, this is so different from China, and I started wondering what's it like to live here. But the opportunity to actually come live here came just many years later.
Many years later. Did you have some sort of interest in Japan before? Maybe pop culture or music or anime, manga? Did you have some interest before?
Not like actively. I think my first contact with Japan as a cultural phenomenon was a random scroll like that you hang on a wall that I think we found at the flea market in France when I was very young. And I had no idea it was from Japan, but this looks nice. Can I have this? And my mom got it for me, and I hung it in my childhood bedroom. And that scroll is still hanging there. Is one of these things you can probably find in a very touristy location in Kyoto. Nothing particularly well made with plastic things, but I saw this every day, so maybe subconsciously I was thinking about this. Of course, I also played video games, Pokemon and Game Boy, but never really associating that with Japan, because in France or in Germany, you'd have the dubbed version anyway, right? So I didn't even know this was a Japanese thing.
So the wall scroll does not feature a particular get the duck out bird, does it? Is there a bird on that wall scroll?
A bird.
Is there a bird?
Is there a bird on that wall scroll?
Possibly. There was a woman with a kimono and a pavilion in the back, kind of similar to Kinkakuji.
You might be safe then. Be safe then. We're just wondering where that might be the wall scroll with the duck that you hang up in Kyoto when you want people to leave.
I don't think so, no.
All right, you're safe there. It'd be funny though if that came together.
Prefer the Cat with Beard episode 10 or something. The Kyoto episode when we talk about the duck out bird to hear more.
All right, so you visited for a short time and then you went back.
Then I went back to my university. Then I went back to China, did an internship in Hong Kong that you're familiar with. Spent quite a few years there.
What internship are we talking about?
In hotel. Just I was thinking about doing a career in hospitality and worked in a hotel in Hong Kong for nearly a year.
Great.
Moved back to mainland China, moved to do my master's degree. And at the end of my master's degree, I got to do another exchange in Japan this time. And this is the second time I went to Tokyo this time. Yeah.
Can I ask what was your master's degree in hotel management?
My master's degree was so my bachelor's was in business management and my master's was in Asian studies. So basically social sciences and political sciences applied to Asian kind of societies.
Interesting.
What was your goal with that?
Yeah, because you're doing hotels, and this doesn't seem like you really need, unless you're going to start hotels, it doesn't seem like you really need either of those.
Not hotels. At all. What happened was...
Correct.
What happened was I had this internship in Hong Kong, and I loved the experience, but I wasn't sure I wanted to continue a career in that. And I also didn't really have another plan at the moment, so I was thinking, well, let's get a master's degree for the sake of getting a master's degree, because in Europe they still at that time were saying it increases your chances of getting a better job later on and so on. But I didn't want to do a master's in business. So I was like, this is not really what I'm interested in, because I had a bachelor's in the field already. So I thought, what am I interested in? And Asia was kind of a place where I wanted to spend more time and explore more. And I found this master in Asian studies at a university in Sweden. I applied, I got in, and I did it there.
Hang on. I'm sorry. You went to Hong Kong for your internship, but I was under the impression that your master's was in China, no?
No, it's in Sweden.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's in Sweden? She did Sweden as well.
Hold on, I think I missed that too, so that might have been dropped a little bit under the table. Hold on. So Germany, France, China, Sweden. Am I missing another?
China, Japan, back to France, Hong Kong, Sweden.
Wait, how about that?
I think if we really do that journey, it's going to be quite complex.
Okay,
so I was in France, went to China, in Shanghai, went back to France, then to Hong Kong, then back to mainland China, then to Sweden.
I see.
And
in
did
between
my master's.
for a short trip to Japan.
Exactly, for holiday. And at the end of my master's, I went to university in Tokyo to do my graduation thesis, basically. And that's the second time I came, and I got to stay longer, which was great. But I didn't speak any Japanese. So like most people, and we were talking as well, when you had your first experience here, you couldn't really speak and interact with people. And for me, I was kind of left disappointed to be just in this little bubble at my university doing my research and hanging out just with foreign students and not being able to even interact with a local shop owner. And that's kind of when I was like, maybe I should kind of come back and...
Okay, just maybe that came across in the podcast. Not speak and interact was actually, in my case, not the problem so much, because I already had friends
the
and
very
stuff.
first time when you came as an exchange during your
That was actually
high
good.
school. Oh,
It was actually pretty good. Actually, I had a really good time. But that's why I wanted to come back. maybe that didn't translate quite
no, I was saying
earlier. But
specifically the language, right? Did you already speak Japanese the very first time you
I
came?
mixed it. I mixed Japanese and English. It was
Wow.
tons of fun. Yeah. It was,
Cool.
So I had 3 months
Well,
to
I did
learn it.
not
I
at
just
all.
braved
I
it
think
and
maybe
tried
it
it.
meant me. My Japanese wasn't good when I first came here.
Getting the cats and the beards mixed up. That's fine.
It's easy to do.
And we both have pigtails, so that makes sense.
Damn beards.
Twin tails. What? No.
Carry on, Toby.
No beard.
Now that we're talking about Cathy Cat's beard. All right. So so you said back to Japan.
Yeah.
And you're doing your Snickermagic
Yeah.
Japan. All right.
And I finished this degree, and then I'm like, what do? I was thinking I still want to learn a language. I was studying Chinese before. Like, do I go back to China? Do I learn Chinese? And eventually I picked Japan because I wanted to try something new. And so I applied for language school here.
One thing I'm very curious about is because you've been like such a globetrotter, how did your family react to when you said, I want to go to Shanghai or I'm not going to Sweden? Like, what was your family like? Were they like, yes, thumbs up?
I think the first time when I went to Shanghai, I had been talking to them about it for a little bit, and they kind of knew it was probably coming, and most likely they would have preferred that I go to, I don't know, Canada or the US or Australia originally, but then they came to visit me as well. They came with me when I moved there at the beginning for a holiday, and they saw that I like it, so they were happy that I like it. And then from there on, they saw that I was going to all these places, and they knew, okay, he's going around and we will not stop him.
That's good.
Right, yeah,
Sounds
'cause
like-
I mean, like that's not you're like, hey, let's go there.
Yeah.
Kind of like America is like a typical one, for example, for Germans to go to. Everyone just wants to go to America.
Back then, it was still like the American dream, right? But it was starting to crumble a little bit. Maybe
Oh,
now,
right.
Financial crisis.
No.
maybe nowadays it's not so much the American dream. I feel like when I went to university, and especially the people that went to my university the years after, Asia became the much more attractive area where people wanted to go for exchange.
That's interesting, really.
Yeah.
Why did you then go to Sweden for your masters?
I didn't pick Sweden particularly for any reason besides that they had this program at that university,
Oh, but which program was that now?
Asian Studies.
Oh, right. So you left Asia to do Asian studies in Sweden.
Yeah, because the university had a decently good reputation and a good program, and also it was free.
Oh,
that's
okay.
good.
Yeah,
Can't go
the
wrong
good
with that.
Swedish support here.
We have her as well. You've also lived in Cambodia, Greece, and Ireland.
Yeah.
Whoa, when was that?
Greece was just for like a summer job for 4 or 5 months while during my master's during a summer break. Ireland was just before moving to Japan for a few months to earn some money. Also, I have family there, so spend time with family. And Cambodia was basically after I graduated from my master's. I went 1 year volunteering in Cambodia, which is where I was when I applied to come to Japan.
Well, you've lived in a lot of places.
You're
a lot of
really like
experiences.
grabbing life and having a big bite out of that
Which is
apple.
excellent. Which is excellent.
But now I found a place that I really like here in Osaka. So
Good. That's what we like to hear.
Cambodia. You said volunteering. What were you volunteering as?
So there's this organization called Organization for Basic Training. It's an NGO that was started by a guy called Sopal. Brilliant guy. He grew up in this little village, Chiro village, and wanted to start a school there. And the reason for him wanting to start the school there was that the Cambodian school system is not that well developed, and there are issues with corruptions, with the system not being up to date. So he wanted to provide additional education for free, especially focusing on English, and for the older ones, hospitality education, because tourism is one of the big sectors in Cambodia. So he has a school, but you need to finance it, right? So originally they would do things based on donations, like some people would donate money and they would do crowdfundings and such, but it's not stable. You have some months you have money, you have some months you don't have money, and suddenly you can't pay the teachers and the kids can't go to school. So what he did was he started opening he built with some people from the village bungalows out of bamboo and turned it into like a guest house. And then the revenue from the guest house was used to finance the school. And then it kind of grew and built from there. So when I went there, my role, because I had this hospitality background, was to run this little guest house. So I would coordinate with all the guests and organize tours with the guests and kind of introduce them to the NGO. And occasionally as well, I would help teaching, especially for the hospitality course and English for the older kids.
How interesting.
Wow, that's
very
so interesting. What inspired you to do that?
I don't know.
The goodness of your heart?
Yeah, just like, let's go to Cambodia and volunteer.
I was thinking about doing many things and I didn't know what, and I was talking to someone and that person said, okay, by next week you pick something. And you just do it. And then I was like, okay. So I was either doing like a PhD or finding work, going back to hospitality, or going volunteering. And then I just thought, okay, I'll do volunteering.
These are all dramatically different choices.
Yeah.
That's what my kind of problem was at the time. I couldn't make a decision because it was so different, and I had no idea what to do. And then I realized, well, I can do volunteer now. The rest I can still do later, but it might be more difficult to spend a year volunteering later after.
Well, that's a great attitude.
Choice.
I'm glad you did it.
So having lived in so many places, what is your advice for language learners? Because how many languages do you speak now?
I speak French, German, English, and average or like above average, perhaps Japanese.
Well, good.
Above average Japanese. I'm loving the confidence here.
Impressive.
So what is your advice to language learners? Because that's like gold, right? Like having good language skills.
Especially just and then switch between.
Just to clarify, the above average, I was thinking like the GLPT levels, right? Okay. So kind of the
middle,
above the middle. So N2-ish.
So like a N2. Okay, yeah, that's still good. That's very confident. So what is your advice for people who are learning languages? Because obviously you grew up with two languages. That already sounds like a big advantage. Yeah.
I think you should just learn a language that you want to learn for whatever reason you may have, but not learn a language for, let's say, superficial reasons. So, for example, when I was in business school, China was booming and everyone was like, let's learn Chinese because you're going to get business opportunities in China and whatnot. And many people did that without particularly being interested in living in China and Chinese culture. And they would learn the basics as one does, not so without so much difficulty. But then because there's no interest, they don't keep going and then they lose everything and then it's kind of all wasted. And only the people that are so really passionate about the place they are, the culture they're kind of interacting with, really got to a very high level of any language. And then some people will argue and say, well, yeah, but if you learn a language like, I don't want to discriminate against any language here. But
go on.
If we take, let's say, a language that's less spoken.
Estonian.
German.
German.
It's pretty widely spoken.
I might not have many opportunities if I learn Estonian. But, well, you will have opportunities if you like, if you want to live in Estonia.
Yeah, if that's where you want to be,
Exactly. So my advice would be just like learn a language that you're interested in for whatever reason you have and just find a way that you enjoy learning. For Japanese, for me, it's been difficult. And I've tried many, many different ways to learn Japanese. You have all these videos on YouTube. This is how you learn. This is how I got my N1. This is how I got this. And if you don't enjoy the process, you're not going to make progress. And so my way of learning English has been through watching a lot of TV shows, American TV shows that I liked back then, crime shows, and I was just binge watching and I naturally learned. I tried to do the same for Japanese, but I couldn't find some a Japanese show that I am interested in binge watching, that I really connect with, and that didn't work because I can't force myself to just watch a show for the sake of watching the show. So find a way that you enjoy learning, whether it's through music or it is through shows or it is through animes or it is through...
If movies and shows was not the way for you to learn Japanese, how did you get your above average Japanese level?
Well, first I went to language school.
Good.
I think for me that was necessary because I prefer to have a framework to study.
Yeah,
I know for many it's very difficult to just do like self-study, and I've been able to do self-study on and off since I finished language school, but going through language school has really helped to get the basics and to really get the foundations of learning Japanese. So I did that for 1 year.
1 year? Was that here in Osaka?
Yeah, that's kind of how I came this time to Japan. I came on a student visa initially and went to language school for about a year.
Do they teach you Osaka-ben in language school?
No, they don't. But what's interesting is I don't speak much Osaka-ben, but I sometimes do say things, and I do hear Osaka-ben all day long. So for me, that's the standard Japanese. And I don't realize this is Osaka-ben when I hear it, because for me, this is just how the people talk around here. And then when I go to Tokyo occasionally or elsewhere in Japan, I'm like, oh, they speak strangely.
Yeah, but also if you're speaking Osaka-ben, then you're talking like a TV comedian to anyone outside Osaka. They're talking like Nandayanan, like the comedians on telly do.
おもろいな。
What made you change from Cambodia to Japan? Because there's no gap in between there, right? You went from Cambodia straight to Japan?
Yeah, pretty much just went home for just a couple of months and then came here for the visa.
Why Japan?
I was hesitating going back to either China to continue my Chinese studies or trying something new, either Korea or Japan. And without any too deep reasons, I picked Japan because I was more interested in some cultural aspects of Japan, such as I was reading a lot of Japanese authors, and I was thinking, maybe if I learn Japanese, I can read the original versions instead of the translated books.
Oh, which authors were you reading?
Like Haruki Murakami or some classics.
Very impressive.
Can you already read those in Japanese?
No
right?
way.
There's a whole level.
I will say that I do enjoy reading, and I have been able to read books like Harry Potter in Japanese because first of all, I know the story.
Yeah.
So that helps tremendously. And the other reason is because these books are kind of aimed for a younger audience, they have the furigana. And I feel that it makes the reading experience much more enjoyable because even if you don't know the meaning of the word, if you can read the hiragana and katakana, you can read the page. And then you can go back through it later for checking the vocabulary. But if you don't have the furigana and you don't know, you have to stop every other kanji because you can't even pronounce it in your mind. And then it removes all the pleasure from just reading and making progress in the story.
Yeah.
So I have not been able to read the authors that I like, but I've been able to read the Harry Potter first.
I used to get movies, Hollywood movies that I had already seen and seen many times, so I knew them well, and then watched the dub. Because that way, I knew the story already, and I knew how everything was expressed in English, also within context. Then I'd see how it was expressed in Japanese or whatever language I was doing. And so that gives you the language, but also it gives you a certain cultural sensitivity to expression and communication.
Yeah, I think I did that with books. So first read it in German, then I read it in English to learn English. And I mean, with anime manga, if you expose to that, you get English subtitles, but also Japanese language. So that was probably good exposure. Just expose yourself to the language as much as you can. So now you're in Japan. You do 1 year of learning Japanese at a school here in Osaka. What was your next step?
Well, I was working part-time at a hotel during that time because I still had this in the background, this experience in hospitality. I was like, maybe I can still work here. And I got a job offer to work at a hotel, basically in the back office doing marketing. And I got that offer 1 week before COVID.
Oh, mate.
So we hadn't signed a contract yet, and I was working part-time. And, at the very early stages of COVID, do you remember this website? I think it's from a university in the US that had this map where you could see the volume of people that got infected.
Yep.
I don't remember which university did that, but it was only used at the very early stages, at least. And with my colleagues, we would watch it, and daily you would see the case numbers grow. And I was waiting for the job offer, and then they were like, well, sorry, we have to reduce the working hours because suddenly we had no more tourists coming in. And I was waiting for a couple of months and 3 months and 4 months. And eventually they said, sorry, we can't hire you because the hotel has to run on minimum capacity.
But that would have been the point when you also had to make a hard choice of, do I go back to, I don't know, where my family and friends are, or do I stay in Japan because the borders might close? Was it did you get the choice or did they just close?
I never, at that point, I wasn't considering going back. I think nobody thought it would last that long.
Sure did.
I remember the days where we were just with my colleagues standing and chatting and be like, oh, it's early April, probably in June the people will come back, and then it's June, it's 10 times worse, and then it's August, it's 100 times worse. But at that time, nobody thought it would last that long, and I didn't really think about going back. I was still looking for other opportunities to work in Japan. But my visa was running out, because my visa was running out that year in December. And so I had to find something.
Yeah, you must have been scrambling to get that visa. What did you do?
I applied for jobs here and there, had interviews, but most hotels were not really recruiting much. And most companies were kind of also waiting it out a little bit, even outside of the hospitality industry. And eventually I was like, well, I'm going to go back. I'm going to enjoy the last few months I have here. I'm going to fly back when my visa expires.
Okay.
And Then?
And then, well, 3 weeks before my visa expired, I got an email in my inbox from the former HR manager from Zen Group, where I work now, which was still called Zen Market back in the day. And she messaged me and she was like, hey, we're looking for someone with some marketing experience and who speaks French. Are you interested?
Well, that worked out. That was the stars aligning, wasn't it? That was the universe talking to you.
I got the mail on Wednesday. She asked, can I come in on Thursday for an interview? Wow. So I went the next day, did the interview. On Thursday evening or Friday morning, she messaged me, can you come back on Monday for a second interview? Came back on Monday for the second interview. On Tuesday, they're like, oh, we would like to hire you. Here's the job offer. Do you agree with the terms? I signed, and on Wednesday, I had the signed contract and the document for the immigration office.
Boom.
And on Thursday, I went to immigration. So all within 1 week.
That's
Smooth.
awesome.
That's
awesome.
not normal, though, guys.
No,
Usually
it's
doesn't
not.
go this quickly.
And
I think that was a
my
need for
apartment
you.
already. I had my flights.
That's what I was
really?
wondering.
So I had to call back the apartment management company. Like, hey, I'm staying longer. Can I? But they were happy too because it was one of these companies that specializes in renting out apartments to foreigners.
Also,
They were like, so I was able to extend and got my
Great.
visa and I canceled my flight and I started working here basically.
Great.
I was hanging onto the edge of my seat with that one because it was like 3 weeks left. So in my head already, he must have cancelled his apartment. He must have cancelled, maybe also already talked with what he's going to do with his banking. And so that was a really tight one.
Yeah, that was a close call.
I'm glad you made it, though. Well, since that was your beginning of your journey with Zen Market, which is where you now work, it's probably a good time to wrap this up, and we'll pick up again talking about your career on our next installment.
Let's do that.
Sounds great. I think we arrived now at this point, in this place, in this office, and we're going to find out all about it.
Just quickly, tell the people your social media.
My personal social media or the podcast social media?
Whatever you want.
Whatever you want to plug.
Well, you can find us on at Unpacking Japan on Instagram and Unpacking Japan on YouTube. If you're interested in listening to our podcast where we interview wonderful people such as Cathy Cat and Ladybeard and other foreigners living here in Japan.
Fantastic.
And on that note, we'll see you again very soon for another exciting installment of
Cat with
Beard. Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss.